Hi, I'm Bogdan Khashiev, and I'm the user acquisition team lead at AdQuantum. I've been working as a UI manager since March 2020, with a focus on mobile game vertical. Over the course of past 3 years, I've promoted various mobile titles and spent approximately $500,000 per month on social network ad platforms. Today, I'll be happy to share my experience with you. Well, get ready to level up your user acquisition skills. In our first lecture, we're going to spill the tea on the best practices for apps with mixed in-app ads and purchase monetization. By the end of the session, you'll be armed with all the knowledge you need to masterfully acquire users and maximize your profits. Don't miss out on this game-changing opportunity. Alright, let's kick things off by diving into the world of mobile app monetization. While some non-game apps shy away from ads altogether, mobile games tend to embrace all sorts of in-app advertising. In-app ad monetization is usually chosen as core revenue source for softcore casual and hyper-casual games. Nonetheless, in-app purchase-oriented mid-core and hardcore projects can also have a certain share of in-app ads, typically 10% or less. It's important to consider both revenue streams when working with these types of games. But things get even more interesting when a game has a mixed monetization model that allows players to progress through both purchases and ads. We define a game with an in-app ad share of 25 to 75% as a mixed monetization app. Each player falls into either the purchase-oriented or ad-oriented category, depending on their behavior, and the majority of the revenue they bring will be of that type. Our task as a UI team is to maximize profit from both types of players. To do this, we need to understand the actual share of each model and adjust our buying strategy accordingly. So, let's dive in and explore how we can estimate the in-app ads and purchase shares at the beginning of our work with a new product. Step 1. Ask the advertiser or the product team. The simplest move you can make is to request the supposed shares of in-app ads and in-app purchases from the product owner. Knowing these shares can help you to focus on more promising setups for your tests. Step 2. Get your game on. I highly recommend playing the game you are promoting, like it's your new favorite hobby. Take note of how many ads you watch and keep an eye out for the dreaded paywall that blocks your progress. And don't forget to watch out for the moments when progress via ads starts to slow down. This first-hand experience will help you to decide how to prioritize your testing efforts. Step 3. Get analytical. If you have access to any mobile measurement partner or business intelligence systems with revenue stats, use them to make your own calculations and segmentations. Setting up a proper event mapping is another crucial stage in effectively targeting the audience segments that generates revenue from in-app ads through rewarded videos and interstitial videos. The idea is to create specific events using the MMP SDK. At AdQuantum, we recommend creating events based on the number of ads a user watches. For instance, we trigger an RV20 event when a user has watched 20 rewarded videos, and an RV20 Day 0 event when a user watches 20 videos on the first day of the game. We typically group such events, RV5, RV10, RV10 Day 0, and then test them to determine which performs the best. You can use your in-game experience to decide what number of ads shown should trigger an event. For apps that use interstitials, events like IT10, IT20, and IT20 Day 0 should be set up accordingly. Lastly, it's important to create an event that counts every rewarded or interstitial video shown for day-to-day traffic analysis. By setting up these events, we can better target and analyze the audience segments that generate revenue from in-app ads. Since we've touched upon event management and SDK, we're going to use Apptica Intelligence tools to gather data on SDK and active integrations of our competitors. This is obviously quite a useful feature. It allows us to check the list of applications with particular SDK installed or removed, see all SDK users by category, and get full information on which models are installed inside any application. And this actually allows us to expand our media buying to new resources. First of all, when we approach a new source, we can find out whether it is used by our competitors. To do so, we go to SDK section right here. Here we have all the SDKs. We can target search them by category, by SDK type, and also by headquarters locations, or by simply searching them.
Let's imagine we need to check out Unity SDK of our competitors. We find Unity, we click on that, and here we have all the apps that have Unity SDK installed. We have the data on the date of installment or date of uninstallment, if that's the case, the category of the app, and what is most important, the number of downloads and revenue. Below that, we have the chart that shows us the share of each vertical within this particular SDK. So we can actually look into whether this particular type of source is commonly used in our vertical or among our competitors. And below that, we also have the similar SDK section, which allows us to look into another sources with similar SDK and see and analyze whether we can use them or not. We can narrow our search by selecting a specific category. Let's say we want to search for casual games. And here we have all the apps sorted by downloads, and we can see the most promoted app within Unity. We can actually learn that by looking into this SDK data, and we have all the apps we need to. We can go even deeper, and here we have all the statistics on the apps. The total amount of apps is 360, so we can target spy any of our competitors by using this feature. And secondly, we can target spy our competitors to see what SDK they have, and thus which traffic sources and analytical tools they are using. To do so, we need to search for a specific app. We can do it right here. Let's try out the app I'm currently working this, Idle Lumber Empire, which is right here. Which is right here. And here we also have the SDK section. This is the page of the profile of the app that Apptica is gathering from different sources. And here we have the SDK section. We can go here and see once again the list of all SDKs installed within this app by version. And also we can see the categories of SDKs this particular app is using, whether it's advertising SDK, developer SDK, analytical SDK, or other. Once again, as I said, this is a very useful feature where we need to get data on which sources our competitors are using to promote their app. We can use this SDK intelligence and also expand our media buying to newer sources.
Targeting for ad events allows us to reach the so-called rewarded videos audience, or RV audience. This audience has two distinct features that set it apart from the classic app event optimization audience. Firstly, the RV audience tends to have a lower CPM, making it a more cost-effective target. Secondly, due to the eCPM decay effect, the RV audience is less sensitive to rotation rate and conversion rate drops, allowing for greater flexibility in creative strategy when optimizing for these events. Advertisers can utilize a wider range of misleading and meta-misleading mechanics to acquire lower CPI, even if it means sacrificing retention or conversion rates. This also opens up opportunities for targeting countries not typically used in purchase-based or value-based campaigns, such as India.
Now we're going to use Apptica Creative Intelligence to show the variety of creative strategies we use for different geos. Apptica Ad Gallery contains millions of unique playables, videos, and banner ads. We can actually learn which ad creatives are used by specific apps and analyze all advertising formats, and thus study mechanics of the newest, most effective or popular ads to inspire our own creative production. Once again, let's use the app I'm currently promoting, Idle Lumber Empire, to see how this whole thing works. So first of all, we need to find our app in the search bar. Here it is. On the app's profile page, we have the advertising section, where we can briefly look through creatives which are being used to promote the app. But to dive into the creative analysis even deeper, we can go to advertising profile, either by clicking on the advertising profile button or by clicking on this view more creatives button right here. Okay, now we can advance our search by narrowing both sources, geos, and by choosing a certain time range. And of course, by selecting different types of creatives, like videos, images, or interactive creatives. Let's say we want to see the most shared ads on social networks in India. We choose the respective geo right here, and we also choose the social networks right here. And here you go. You can also see the newest ads by clicking on this button, and you can also see and choose the ratio of the creatives that you want to look into. Another way how we can approach ad intelligence is by diving deep into certain creatives. Let's wash away the filters, and we will try to look into the click on the most shared ad creative for the past week. Okay, so here it is. By clicking on it, we can see the geos and sources it is being used for promotion, and of course, watch the creative itself. We can dive in even deeper by clicking this button right here. And on this separate page, we also have the video or the banner. We can download it or download the image of it. We can see which headlines are being used with this specific creative. The share of the countries among the total number of impressions, and the most beautiful thing, the distribution share of this creative on this time bar. This actually allows you to analyze whether the creative was very successful, whether it skyrocketed, like this one. This bar shows the creative quickly gathered a significant number of impressions, which is basically true. You can also switch to this distribution share among countries. And here you have the ad network share, which once again shows you the share of every ad network which are being used for this specific creative. As I said, this is a very useful ad intelligence tool, which allows you to dive deep into your competitors' creative strategies and to improve your own creative production.
Now it's time to share some incredibly useful tips for optimizing your ad campaigns. First of all, use the split test to determine the best event to set up. Find the event that gives you the best CPI and ARPU ratio, or simply higher ROAS, and then use that as your starting point for further testing. Keep in mind that different events may perform differently on different countries, so use a variety of geos for your tests, from high, middle, and low tiers, such as US, France, and Brazil, respectively. Secondly, use a broad audience. Since the goal is to prioritize cheapness over quality, a broad audience usually performs better in these segments of traffic. Target men and women aged 18 to 65 to get the most out of your campaign. Thirdly, use tiers of countries. Grouping countries together is an effective way to boost performance. However, using worldwide campaigns and broad tiers can be dangerous because a few geos can easily dominate the majority of your spend. Instead, we recommend using tiers based on country CPM and audience size. This will help ensure that you are spending your budget effectively and maximizing your return on investment. On the screen, you can see the examples of sets you are free to use in your campaigns. Fourthly, it is recommended to start with low budgets, especially on low tiers. My personal advice is not to go big on this type of campaigns. Cheap traffic will always give you enough conversions for campaigns to optimize, and your profit basically relies on low CPI, which is harder to control on bigger budgets. Low tiers require even more attention in this regard, as the CPI is typically shown only up to the second number after 0. For example, If your CPI on India is 0.041 and your expected LTV is 50 cents, it's easy to miss the point where your CPI reaches 0.049 and your profitability is greatly reduced. In such cases, it's better to have a smaller daily spend over a longer period of time. Let's discuss ad traffic optimization. When it comes for optimizing your ad traffic, it's important to keep an eye on your day-to-day performance and set up goals for your return on ad spend at different points of time, obviously. However, unlike purchase-based campaigns, ad traffic tends to have a more consistent revenue curve, which means that your average revenue per user should be also relatively stable on a day-to-day basis. The key to really making the most out of your traffic and your campaigns is to keep a close eye on your CPI. After all, the lower your CPI, the higher your return on ad spend will likely to be. By keeping your CPI stable, you can also expect your ROAS at day zero to be stable as well. Of course, this requires your mobile measurement partner to attribute ad revenue to each cohort day, but that's generally not a problem these days. So, if you're looking to really optimize your ad traffic, remember to focus on your CPI and ARPU goals and keep watch over your performance on a daily basis. However, setting a fixed target CPI for each geo or tier is not always the best approach. As I mentioned earlier, there are multiple creative strategies we can use to attract ad-watching audience. The ad ARPU values of users may vary depending on how closely the interests align with game's core setting and mechanics. Therefore, it's crucial to test new approaches on a limited number of geos before scaling them up. If our return on ad spend goals are achieved, we can then calculate the target CPI while ensuring we double-check with the MMP data. Another helpful tip for on-spot optimization is to establish a comparison metric. At AdQuantum, we use rewarded videos per user, or RVPU for short. By tracking every ad shown through a distinct event, we can create this metric by dividing the number of ads shown by installs. Although it doesn't provide exact revenue or ROAS data, we can use RVPU to compare multiple optimization or hypotheses before receiving ad revenue data from MMP, which can take up to 2 days to be attributed to a cohort. Additionally, we can use RVPU to identify any quality drops in our traffic, which will be reflected by a lower RVPU. Let's move on to assessing the Mixed-ROAS model of mobile game monetization. As we discussed earlier, the mixed monetization model aims to generate revenue from both in-app purchases and ads for every user. This raises a question: should we evaluate both types of revenue separately? For in-app purchase traffic, it's important to have a sufficient purchase ROAS, because high CPI cannot be covered by in-app ad revenue alone. The percentage of ad revenue added to your in-app purchase traffic will mostly be the same for selected purchase-based or ROAS-based optimizations, so there is no need to set up a separate KPI. In-app ad traffic can also be supplemented by in-app purchase revenue, allowing you to pay off even if your target CPI is higher than the set threshold. In such cases, it's important to assess both types of revenue separately, ensuring that high CPI campaigns can continue only as long as the purchases keep coming. In my personal experience, this doesn't take long. When it comes to targeting for ad events on SKAD network, it's worth noting that in-app ad audience represents a significant share of the market on iOS, and RV events can be used to reach it. But measuring the success of such campaigns can be challenging due to the absence of attribution of in-app ad revenue through SKAD. Thus, campaign optimization is limited to only using two indicators: CPI and additional in-app purchase revenue. For each country or tier, there is an acceptable range of CPI that, based on your ARPU prediction, can allow you to pay off. Additional purchase ROAS should be used as an index that will broaden your CPI range. The key question, as always with iOS, is how to correctly estimate the ARPU of your audience. The commonly used baseline method is very impractical in this case, as eCPM, which directly affects your ad revenue, is not a constant value throughout the year. And of course, your creative strategies can vary a lot, causing the need for constant reassessment. How to deal with this is a topic for another, much bigger lecture. However, as far as I'm aware, there are analytical solutions that allows you to reattribute users from organic back to campaigns. Well, That's it for this lesson. Keep an eye out for upcoming tips on UA testing for new mobile products and efficient budget management. There are plenty of interesting content on the horizon.